Sort of. Also kind of real, though, it turns out. Today, the FBI brought charges against the former director of security for the Senate Intelligence Committee. It was part of an ongoing investigation of secret information that has been leaked to the press over the years. The man in question is called James Wolfe. He was in charge of handling information as it passed from the executive branch to the Congress. Wolfe had access to huge amounts of highly classified information, including intelligence documents. Now, a job like that requires unimpeachable integrity. Wolfe is accused of leaking classified material to several reporters and then lying about it to the FBI. And it gets weirder from there. Allegedly, Wolfe passed information to a college student called Allie Watkins. Watkins later went on to become a reporter at several media outlets, including Politico, BuzzFeed, and the New York Times. Wolfe, who is in his 50s, has admitted having a relationship, apparently, with Watkins that went on for 3 years. Watkins has denied that Wolfe was ever a source for her stories, but text messages released today strongly suggest otherwise. Here's one, quote, "I always tried to give you as much information so you could get that scoop before anyone else," Wolfe wrote to Watkins. "I felt like I was part of your excitement and was always very supportive of your career and the tenacity you exhibited to chase down a good story." It goes on like this. It's pretty sad and a little creepy. I felt like I was part of your excitement? You know, you imagine these guys are sinister. It turns out they're mostly just pathetic. Though they are kind of sinister, too, actually. The Russia hoax would not exist. It wouldn't have metastasized to take over our entire government, our entire national conversation, if corrupt bureaucrats like this weren't misusing their power, which they are. So it's hard to feel too much sympathy for this Wolfe guy. On the other hand, the feds once again are prosecuting somebody whose sole alleged crime is lying to the feds. It would be nice if our government went after people for real crimes once in a while. Might make you feel a little better about the system. The DOJ also seized phone and email records from a reporter in this case and apparently broke into encrypted text exchanges. Didn't know that was possible. Turns out it is. This all looks a lot like what the Obama people used to do. It was worrisome then, and it's worrisome now. When the government spies on American citizens, it is always a big deal, whether those citizens are New York Times reporters or whether they are Trump campaign staffers. It doesn't matter. There had better be a very good reason for spying on Americans. The media, of course, do not recognize this. They only care when it's someone who shares their politics. As far as they're concerned, conservatives deserve to be wiretapped just because they're conservative. The press are partisan buffoons who wouldn't know a principle if it got in the shower with them, but the point remains. Dan Bongino is a former NYPD officer and Secret Service agent, and he joins us tonight. Dan, if you would, since I know you follow this story more carefully than anyone I know, put this in context for us. How does this Wolfe character fit into the larger story?
Well, Tucker, the name of Carter Page he was relatively anonymous in this scheme. Carter Page had assisted the FBI in a prior case where they locked up a Russian spy in the Buryakov case. But the name was relatively unknown at that point. Wolfe's the one who leaks the existence of the name Carter Page. Oh, well, if the name was there, leaks the name to Allie Watkins, who then writes this story. The story is then, this is where it gets ugly, Tucker, and this is why the press has zero credibility in this at all. That story by Watkins is then cited repeatedly to advance the Pravda-like media propaganda story that Trump's cooperating with the Russians because Carter Page, now that they have the name, was a Trump foreign policy advisor. This was used over and over again. This is this circle of lies and deceit we see. And I agree with you. Your opening statement's spot on. I have a libertarian spine, and I don't care who's in office. I am always concerned about the freedom of the press. Period. Full stop. But what I find absolutely hypocritical is media Pravda-like phonies complaining now about government overreach while you've been dead silent on spying, on the prosecution of Mike Flynn, on all of this stuff. Give me a break. You forfeited your voice to talk a long time ago.
Spying, but it wasn't spying. Remember that? When a paid government informant gathered information secretly on 3 separate Trump campaign officials and sent it back to the government without telling the Trump campaign. That wasn't spying. That was just the FBI doing its duty, right?
You know, it's amazing. I watched your interview, which is a classic, by the way, with police stater Eric Swalwell, the congressman from California, who, when he mentioned spying, you know, he actually said something that was true to you, Tucker. And to be fair, he's not here to defend himself, but he said, hey, we only spy on the bad guys. He was right. Trump was the enemy. This is the new liberal police state mindset. Trump is the enemy, not the Chinese, not the trade relationships with the Chinese, not the Russians. The real enemy was Donald Trump. He was absolutely right. This is the new liberal mindset. Trump is the bad guy, and you're right. As long as you're spying on conservatives, it's A-OK, and we'll play the euphemisms game. No, he was an informant. That's nonsense. He was a spy, and everybody knows it.
We used to have trials that helped us understand who was the bad guy or not. I mean, people were accused of things, and then it went before a jury or a judge, and we knew for certain. But now, the accusation is itself considered proof of guilt. When did that happen?
Yes, I'm glad you brought this up because, Tucker, remember, this is what frequently gets lost in this. Wolf's related to this Carter Page story. Remember, Carter Page is the entry point for the signals intelligence spying operation, the interception of the emails and texts into the Trump team. Tucker, nobody to this day has provided a scintilla of evidence that there was probable cause of the two things they needed to spy on Carter Page. That he was acting as a foreign agent or on behalf of a foreign agent, and secondly, in violation of U.S. law. Nobody has shown that. Carter Page is out doing cable interviews, probably tonight somewhere. This is nonsense.
If Carter Page was guilty, why hasn't Carter Page been charged? I mean, as you just pointed out, his behavior was the pretext for this entire story. So doesn't it tell you something that he's not even been credibly accused of a crime?
The FBI and the Department of Justice, Tucker, walked into a foreign intelligence surveillance court, used to effectively the Star Chamber, right? Used to prosecute the worst among us, terrorists, the worst savages on the planet. They bring Carter Page in there to spy on him, and you're right. He's out walking around right now. Matter of fact, the FBI is not interviewing him. I know of no controls on his behavior at all.
No, it's true.
The answer is because there probably is no indications of criminal behavior at all, and they desperately want that angle of it to go away.
And once you talk to Carter Page, as you may have, you realize how sad this whole thing is. I mean, Carter Page was never a Russian agent or an agent of anybody. I'm not even sure what he does for a living. I mean, it's pathetic. Dan, thank you. It's great to see you.